Ladies and gentlemen, the following is scheduled for one fall. It is time for That Way Cool Wrestling Show! Hey everybody, welcome to That Way Cool Wrestling Show. My name is Danny J. Right here on the DJV Productions Network. Hit that notification bell down below. Hit the subscribe button. Share the channel, share the episode. As always, enjoy the show. We have a great one for you today. We're going to be talking about a very controversial subject. We're going to be talking about the tragic loss of Chris Benoit, his family, the controversy that came around the scenario, the different theories behind it, etc. Nothing new has been added, so we're basically speculating based on everything that everybody currently knows, so we're not bringing any new information to light or anything like that. But we do have also a special guest with us today who's going to give us a little bit more insight that maybe the public or social media has not revealed. So that's going to be something that we're going to talk about today. First and foremost, let's bring on our people. We got Mad Mark Lindsay.
Hey everybody, how are you today?
My good friend there. We got Charles Gemini Gregory.
What's up, guys?
Going up here. And
I'm
then
all to the side here.
You are. Thank you very much. And then special guest was a friend of the show, NWA WWF Star Tommy Angel. Tommy, welcome to the show today. We really appreciate you coming on today.
Welcome, fellas. Thanks for having me. And what's Mark mad about?
I don't know. He's always mad about something.
That's his nickname for me. I had no say in that.
Look at his
angry.
beard. Look at his beard. He's an angry man. So anyway.
Handsome beard. I like it.
Very handsome beard. So there you go. Tommy's a gentleman. So here we go. So what it is. So today we're going to talk about Chris Benoit. Let me start off by saying we plug this up on social media. When we do these shows, Mark will tell you, we promote the shows, etc., on the different social medias. And the comments or the right, the comments and everything are mostly negative. I'm not going to watch his show. He was a murderer. Why glorify this monster? I mean, the comments go on and on and on. Very few people were like, this is a sad type of thing or whatever the case was. And it sounded a lot like, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it sounded like a lot of marks who just like believe the first story that came out and they're like, oh, this is it and that's that and there's no other thing. But there are a lot of medical issues that were involved in this. And the reason why I want to bring this up is not because this was an isolated incident. In a more closer note for Charles, myself, Mark, we know people that this almost the same exact thing happened, okay? And it wasn't a person that was an evil person. There is no Dick Dastardly in the story, okay? And it's something that really needs to be considered. I find the whole thing tragic. I don't find it just a tragic thing that we lost Chris Benoit. We lost Nancy. We lost his son. We're going to talk about David and how David's going to have to bear this issue. You know, they call it the sins of the father. So we'll talk about that kind of thing here. First and foremost, Mark, you are on the other side of what I'm on with the story. Now, to give you an idea, I find it tragic. At no way, shape, or form can anybody say it did not happen, okay? So no one's saying there's an innocent party versus a guilty party, okay? Mark, you are on the stance of a little bit more like, I guess, how despicable things were. Give us your insight on how you feel about that.
Sorry. Let me just start off by saying, in my lifetime, I've had two favorite all-time wrestlers. Number one, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Mm-hmm. Number two, Chris Benoit.
Right. Yeah.
I, like you, Dan, would go to the Philadelphia airport after Nitro. I would go to the hotels and try to get autographs, try to get pictures taken with the wrestlers. Right. And I did that with Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit was my guy. I saw him rise up the ranks in ECW, become a household name with the tape traders in the early 90s. And then get his big break in WCW. He became a member of the Four Horsemen. Okay, I love Chris Benoit. I was a big Benoit fan. My issue, and the reason why I'm opposite of you, is that once this issue, regardless of why, whether it was the CTE, the medical reasons, what have you, it happened. He murdered his wife, he murdered his child, he killed himself. Now, I'm going to basically give you my argument with one name. What is the first thing you think about when you hear the name O.J. Simpson? You probably think of he got away with murder. You probably think of a white Ford Bronco. You probably think of if the glove don't fit, you must have quit.
Right.
You probably think of his acting career, Naked Gun, and how he was a good actor. And then football is like number 5 on that list.
It really is. It's the truth. Yeah.
So
you're right.
with Chris Benoit, the first thing I think about is he killed his son. He killed his son, he killed his wife, and then he killed himself. And wrestling isn't anywhere near the top. So I cannot separate the work from the worker, as I said earlier. And it pains me to do that because one of my favorite memories of wrestling was Chris Benoit winning the title at WrestleMania 20.
Yes.
The end of that show, celebrating with Eddie Gilbert, was one of my favorite moments.
Eddie Guerrero. Yeah.
I can honestly tell you since, 2007 this happened? I can honestly tell you, with the exception of an occasional Facebook clip here and there, I have watched 0 Chris Benoit matches, 0 Chris Benoit anything, because I'm so sad.
You mean based on you bringing it up or something like that, you mean? Yeah.
Look, I like to go back and watch like Starrcade 85, or I like to watch, Magnum TA, Nikita Koloff, or gosh, Great American Bash 88 I just watched the other day on WWE Network. I like to go back and watch a lot of that stuff. I cannot watch Chris Benoit. I can't do it. To me, it's again, maybe I'm just saying something. I'm not trying not to be disrespectful, but to me, I cannot separate it. I cannot do that. And I don't know how other people can, but maybe I'll learn something today. I don't know.
Charles, let me get your intake on this.
Well, me being a father, I'm a grandfather. You guys know I got 4 grandkids. Leading up to this whole thing, I start watching old tapes. ECW, WCW. I went through the tapes, and I'm just trying to watch and see. Now, there's something that's pretty weird for me when they say the CTE and all this. If you watch, and I'm not saying I'm a psychologist or anything like that. Trust me.
Right.
And I did almost 20 years in the business. I had my concussions. I had broken bones. You name it, I did it. I know how it is. But to be a father, I got 2 grown kids. There's something different. If you watch any of his earlier tapes, as he led up all the way up to the WWE, if you look at his face, look at it. Maybe, like I said, I'm no psychologist. Look at his face. Look at his eyes. It seems like as the years went on, some people saying it's getting tired or you're worn out, but he didn't look the same. You don't change the way you look at things. You don't change the way like your eyes are to me. But it seems like when I was watching, maybe I was looking too much into something, but it looks like he started to get that glazed over look all the time. Whenever it was kind of like, maybe it is true what they're saying. Maybe he did have the CTA. Maybe. But I'm not Mark. Like Mark, I will never defend it because there's nothing in this world that would make me that crazy to hurt my child.
Right.
Or my wife. I'd rather take myself out if I thought like that, like something was wrong with me. I would probably do myself before I touch them. I know there's a lot of pressure. I know women get on your nerves. Who knows? I don't know what type of woman she was, but the son was a whole innocent factor in this. But there's so many stories like they said she was dead first or the child. We don't know what happened.
We don't know.
They keep saying there was a car out there. They keep saying it could have been murder. Is this a shame that he was such a great influence in wrestling that he loses that? Like you said, like OJ, he lost all that. He lose WWF with their bullshit. Vince always had bullshit with him anyway. He covered more shit for people. It happened. Everyone knows about it. You erased him off of every tape, whatever. But I don't agree with that. His earlier stuff, even up until when it happened, I understand. You want to, separate yourself. But like I said, we do not know what really happened.
No, we don't. No.
I'm really glad to be doing this episode, get some insight. Maybe it was just me, because he just, like, a person's face, he just didn't look the same. Like when you watch it, even on film, because I'm like trying to like decipher, he just didn't look the same. Like,
right.
I don't know.
Now, as a generic statement, you mentioned something really, really good about how Vince covers up. Like we heard, if you see Dark Side of the Ring, they talk about Vince's involvement in trying to clean up Jimmy Snuka, as an example. And that's because Jimmy Snuka was a moneymaker. Was a moneymaker at that time.
He was a moneymaker.
If Hulk Hogan, the be-all, end-all of wrestling, whether you like him or not, that's it is. If he did something like this, Hulk Hogan would not be erased from wrestling.
I'm going to tell you like this. I stopped watching Hulk Hogan when he said the word nigger. I'm just letting you know.
Well, sure.
I've been in, like I said, in locker rooms of good old boys. Let's put it this way. You guys know me. There was times I didn't care who you were. I had one. I mean,
I started watching Hulk Hogan when Booker T said the word nigger. You know?
Yeah, But that right there just shows your true colors. Like I said, wrestling has always been like that.
But would Hulk Hogan? But now think business-wise and be Vince McMahon for a second. Would Hulk Hogan be erased?
No way.
Well, look what happened. That happened. Hogan was removed,
and they
brought him back.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. So.
Okay, and many people for doing that, and it's a despicable thing. I mean, it's not murder, but it's a despicable thing. And many people lost their career, no matter what the business was, because of that. What was that one? The chef, the woman who did it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the old lady. Yeah,
the old lady, and she never really recapped from that and stuff like that.
But he's worth too much. If you're worth money, you get away.
That's
it's kind of like politics. If you're a rich politician, you say shit like that, you get away with it. Whatever.
Now,
the average Joe, no. But let's get back to Benoit here.
Right. And the reason why I get back into this, and the reason why, and I alluded to this earlier, that we knew personal people that this similar actions have happened, and you don't hear about it because it's not Chris Benoit, it's not WWE, but ECW original Rockin' Rebel, who was someone that I can personally tell you, and Mark, I don't know your relationship with
Chuck. I knew Chuck, very well. Yep.
I knew Chuck from the age of 5 years old. Me being, because
he was a landscaper all over Havertown and
area,
County,
where we grew up, and he lived. I was on this corner house, he was at this corner house, so we were a block away from each other. And he's older than me, so my brother kind of hung with him, and then me going with my brother, I got to hang, and then finding out he was in wrestling made me talk to him more. That's how our relationship started.
Well, wait a minute. Before you even talk about him, I refuse to talk about him.
Yes.
On a personal level, like I did 20 years, he was a piece of shit then.
He was, and I'm not
straight up. I'm not going to defend anything. No. He was beating on that woman for years. We all know it.
And I'm not going to defend him.
They were always over there. What he did, he was a little bitch. He beat her up, whatever, killed her. Then he knew he was going to go to jail, kill himself. That's the bottom line.
And that's CTE. And that was bullshit. They did do it. They did do a thing, and he did.
He could have whatever you want. He didn't have it for 20 years. He was beating on her for 20 years, dude.
No.
So whatever you say, we're gonna leave that. Let's not even talk about that dude.
Right.
If you don't mind, I don't even want to bring him up.
But that's a scenario where his child was in the other room.
His kids were in the house, dude.
They were in the house.
He killed their mother. Look, let's just leave that alone. Yeah. And let's talk about Benoit. I don't even want to talk about him. I'm sorry, guys. You guys can talk about him. And then
you're right. You're right though. But in all honesty, this is a mirrored situation that wasn't big enough to be major news. Yeah. Okay, but it's a similar situation. Tommy,
that's what I want to hear. I want to hear his perspective on this. That's
Tommy, and thank you for coming on, Tommy. I really do.
Thank you very much. I want to hear your perspective on this so bad.
Tommy is a very good friend of the show, and I really appreciate my relationship with him and his relationship with the show and all. Tommy, my understanding is, and please correct me if I am incorrect, is that you had first of all, you knew Chris for a number of years, and my understanding is that you had interaction with Chris roughly about a month or so prior to the incident happening. Is that correct?
Yep. I first started being around him when our crew from the NWA got a chance to go up and work for Vince, 88, 89, 90. And as we kept doing all the television tapings, we were around Chris and all the other guys a lot. Chris seemed to gravitate towards Owen and Bret Hart. So when you do TV tapings, there's always groups of guys that kind of hang out together, and I always seem to be around them. And I loved Owen. He was a wonderful kid, and Chris seemed about the same, very quiet, but just very polite. And hey, Tommy, how you doing? We weren't best friends, but we knew who each other was. And same with all the other guys. And back then he was probably about, I don't know, 210, 215, just ripped. And from the time I saw him later, as I lead into where I ran across him right before that all happened, he was about 250. I know he got on growth hormone, just blew up.
Wow.
Right.
And, to your guys' point about things happening, Vince McMahon not using, bringing it back, it was all, as you guys stated, if he doesn't think he can make a nickel off you, he'll throw you away. But it doesn't matter what happens. If he can make money off you, he'll put you right in the middle of the camera. So that's the dirty side of the business, and it's all greed and whatever puts money in the bank. But probably about, that happened over a 3-day period, if you guys remember, it was June 22nd to the 24th of 2007. They came to town in Charlotte. I was working in the nonprofit world, working for a nonprofit, Big Brothers Big Sisters. So I got off work, I wore a suit, I went down to the building there, Time Warner Cable Arena, and said hi to the boys. It was probably February, March that year, I think. I don't recall. I went in the back, and everybody's looking at me like, "Is that you, Angel?" You know, my hair's no mullet, the real thin, wearing a suit. They're like, "What the?" See if I'm wearing a suit. It's like, "You guys, were you trying to be an agent? What's up?" I went around talking to all different guys that were there, and some of the guys I'd never met before, like Batista, introduced myself, and I saw Chris. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? He just, "What's up?" Like, "Hey man, Tommy." It's like, I said, "Tommy Angel." He just look. I thought he was ribbing me. I'm like, "Dude, I know I don't have any hair. I'm wearing a suit. I'm a little fatter, but." It's like, "No, I don't remember you." And it just seemed odd because, to your point earlier, Charles, you said, you could see in his eyes, he just was not there.
Glassy, very glassy.
And one of the guys came up and said, I said, "Bro, he don't remember who I am. Is he ribbing me?" He goes, "No." He said, he's having a lot of problems remembering like what the next town is, who he's working, and all that stuff. So
wow. Okay.
I thought, man, that's weird. And Johnny Laurinaitis, used to be Johnny Ace. He's the agent. He's kind of tied into the whole story leading into that night over when they're in Corpus Christi for Raw. I said, "Hey man, you can give me some autographed pictures. I want to use them for an event that we're having, auction them off." I mean, sure. And a couple weeks later, he sent like 8 or 10 glossies, and one of them was Chris Benoit autographed. I was like, that's cool. All the guys I had on there, and it's sure as shooting, man. When that happened, it freaked me out that he had murdered his wife and son. But I knew Nancy when she was with Kevin Sullivan, when she was a woman, and she was a wonderful person, very nice, just unassuming. So that was the hard part for me to understand, and a bunch of us who knew him just started following the whole story. But I do remember that was the neurosurgeon at University of West Virginia. They did examine his brain. He said his brain looked like an 85-year-old Alzheimer. CTE had affected all 4 lobes, and people like that don't make rational decisions. They don't decide, do I'm going to kill my wife or I'm not.
No.
I don't think I ever guys told you, but my father committed suicide, and it was from depression and things that happened in Vietnam. And I just used to think, why don't you just get over it? Why don't you just think happy thoughts? But you don't understand clinical depression and stuff that happened to Chris is you do not think rationally. You don't process information. And I just remember thinking, man, how could you? I'm a father as well. It's like you guys. I could not harm my son. I don't care what was going on, but that's what made me believe that he wasn't really in touch with what was happening. If you can find the toxicology reports online, Daniel had Xanax, so did Chris and Nancy, but he had hydrocodone. She had Dilaudid in her. So all the stories of maybe he gave Daniel Xanax to kind of calm him down. I don't know. But the tragic thing is that it did happen. And I kind of like the rest of you guys, you understand his body of work and how great he was in the ring. I mean, he was one of the best technical wrestlers I've ever seen in my life. It was just a joy to watch. We'd all go watch him just work, and no matter the outcome of the finish, but man, he was just crisp. He was sharp, and he was strong as an ox.
He was strong as a bull. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point, actually, and this goes back to the fans a little bit, is that if you do not suffer from any type of mental illness, be it depression, CTE in this case, or anything like that, you don't understand why you, like to your words, get over it. Move on, think happy thoughts. That's a rational person's mindset to say, well, if that makes you feel bad, don't think about it. You know what I mean? That's 1 and 1 equals 2. But it is not that here. My brother-in-law is bipolar. And when he goes manic, it's like, oh shit, dude. Like he has to go away. And I'm the same way. And I have friends who have anxiety, like social anxiety. And I'm like, get the fuck over it. I mean, it's just people, they're friends. Who cares? And nobody's looking at you. Oh, but they are. But you know what I mean? Like you can't get in their head, even though it seems so silly to you because you don't suffer from it. To them, this is a completely different perception. And that's a very, very good point to bring up.
This is a question I'm going to ask Tommy, if he doesn't mind.
Sure.
Tommy, I know you are way above a level that I was. I mean, I did local. I did 18, almost 20 years. After that all happened, I told myself, I'm not taking any more headshots. I refuse to take headshots after that.
Right.
Well, if you watched a lot. If you watched all his films, he was one of the only guys that told him, use the chair. I want you to hit my head. And we were telling him, dude, that is stupid.
Dude, he would take shots like
back is all I'd move my head, but taking it back. But he took more than one to the head, and I mean, he come back bleeding. He's like, man, it looks good for television, bro.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys we would I used to do a lot of the hardcore matches sometimes, and I would take them from people I knew. But I remember one time, man, it was my last really one. Anthony from the Pitbulls, man. He used to swing that thing like Johnny Bench, and he swung that tip, and he cracked me, right? And I was laying there, I was dizzy as shit, right? He goes, "You all right, brother?" And I looked at him. He goes, "Oh, my bad," like this, and I had to roll out the ring to shake it off, and that was like right after that, I was like, that's probably the last one. Do you think that was a combination of being in the business? I mean, our bodies take a really bad beating, headshots, concussions, dings dang. Do you think that was a huge contributor to what happened? Do you feel?
I believe it does because realize that I've gotten concussions just from when I took a clothesline one time, my head snapped back and hit the ring.
Yeah.
Off. I got a concussion, and I didn't even know what town I was in. I was like, this is weird.
Yep.
Tommy, I watched a show with you literally like 2 days ago, and you got your head completely taken off. I forget who you were wrestling, and I said, Jesus Christ. I said I was thinking to myself, thinking about this episode, doing research, but I just happened to be watching wrestling, and it was an old school Saturday night 605, and you were on there, and somebody took you the hell out of your shoes, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I'm surprised he can still talk at this point.
Dude, you'd be surprised. It'd be something basic though, Dan, because I remember being out at the arena, and I was 360 pounds at the time. And I remember, I think it was Trent, and Trent hit me with a clothesline. I took a weird fall and hit my head. I had to roll out of the ring because I was like, oh shit, I couldn't shake it off.
Yeah.
I mean, you do that all day, time after time after time. Those guys, like I said, you're on the road, 300 days a year. It catches up to you, but I'm not using it as an excuse.
Right.
I'm not saying it is, but I'm pretty sure in my mind, that was one of the major contributors. I mean, Tommy, do you think WWE or at the time WCW, WWF, every year should do a full physical on these dudes, like MRIs, maybe a brain scan or something like that, just to be sure these guys are all right? I mean, it's not like he doesn't have the money or the insurance to cover it.
Right.
Well, I agree. They should have a protocol like the NFL does, where if you look like you're wobbly, you can't work until we figure out what's wrong with you, because these guys don't realize they're potential lawsuits that I would think they'd be able to, they all agree to work to get paid to do it, but there's no insurance. That's why one of the smaller reasons I got out of the business, there was no health care. If you wanted
Right.
insurance can't pay through your nose because you're such a high risk.
Yeah.
No, I'm like you, man. I would not let anybody hit me with a chair that I didn't trust. I
Yeah.
remember one time at a house show, Sid Vicious, that guy's a goofball, but he grabbed a chair and I ran around the ring until he got tired of chasing me. He got mad as hell. I'm like, oh, hell no, you ain't going to smack me with that chair. He's stiff as a board.
Now, I was watching interviews. There was multiple interviews with Stevie Ray, even Kevin Sullivan, a number of different people talking about Chris Benoit and saying, like, you know, like kind of like what Mark's saying, like separating the work from the man, or how you know him. Like, granted, you know him as a worker, but you also know him personally. How, you know, is this him? Is this something? You know, is there evil there? As an example, I mean, it's a little dramatic.
Let me just chime in for 1 second as well,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that it's known. I know this is a very tragic issue, okay?
Yeah,
And I know never once did I not think that it was it's tragic, and it is very, very sad.
It is.
I just want to make sure that that's clear, because I don't hate Chris Benoit. I'm let down. I'm very sad. I'm disappointed.
I mean, any human being would hate the act that happened. I mean,
Of course,
yeah.
I hate the act. I understand that a lot of it was probably contributed to CTE, which that is most likely what happened. So I don't doubt that.
Now, to give you some quotes, and I'm going to paraphrase some of the quotes because I watched this like months ago. For example, Stevie Ray of Harlem Heat said, you know, hey, is it possible for your wife to get on your nerves? Yeah, sure it is. I mean, this is him saying this. He goes, you know, he said, but that wasn't the Chris Benoit that I knew. Okay. Then they go to another guy. He was a real nice guy. He was this. That was not the Chris Benoit that I knew. It mirrored the same. They was two different interviews. The one that really struck me, and I never thought about this until he said it, was the late Axel Rotten. They talked to him, and he said, I knew Chris Benoit for years, and Chris Benoit was a great guy, and I knew Nancy, and Nancy was great. And he goes, and Daniel used to come to the shows, and we used to pick Daniel up and something. So he goes, I was very familiar with all of them. And he goes, and what I'm about to say is not popular. What I'm about to say is not something that people like to talk about. He said, but my theory, and this is just a theory. This was Axel Rotten saying this. He says, my theory is that she possibly was postpartum, very possibly postpartum, which is a real thing. Daniel was not that old at all, no. which postpartum could last a number of years. He said, my belief, because once again, that's not the Chris Benoit that I know. He says this. I believe what happened was she was postpartum. She unfortunately killed Daniel. Chris Benoit comes home in a fit of rage, kills her.
Wasn't her back broken?
Her back was broken, yes.
Yeah.
The fit of rage kills her. He's got his son. He's got her. Just like anybody else in that situation, I have nothing else. I don't know what's going to happen, and then takes himself out. Now, that really rang to me. You can say, well, that's a conspiracy theory or whatever, but for Daniel to be passed away very peacefully, in a sense, and then the violent nature of Nancy's death, like you said, a broken back, which would indicate that he had his knee on her back.
No, well, wait a minute.
And
wait a minute. He was strong. He was strong as shit. He could have squeezed her and broke her back.
Anything. I mean, what they did suggest was that it was like a position where almost like that George Floyd, where
but he was on her back.
Right, he was on her back and he was choking her, type of thing, and he broke her back, and I think she had strangulation, if I'm not mistaken. And so that really rang to me to say, well, how could that not happen in a sense? And it's not to push blame on Nancy. It's not to take blame off of Chris, but that's a realistic scenario in that, and take CTE out of it for a second. That would maybe drive me nuts if my wife, God forbid, killed my child. You know, no matter what the scenario is. My wife went through postpartum, very, very small, and she explained to me that she said, I had bad thoughts of walking out without the baby. I've had bad. She goes, and I had to fight myself because that's something hormonal that's happening in that woman after the babies.
Hey, Dan, all due
come
respect,
back.
she's married to you, so I feel bad for her anyway.
Yeah, well, you know,
But
she's a strong woman.
Look, in another, like, I mean, everyone can have a theory about something.
Yeah.
And I'm still back to, it's a shame that
It is.
we will never ever
No.
find out.
No, we don't.
He, like you said, he could have snapped because someone heard him. There's other theories about other people doing it. There's all kind of crazy theories.
See, I don't
but
buy
that's how it
theories
is.
about somebody else, and unless, like, now you're talking about a Dino Bravo situation
Yeah.
where Chris Benoit has to be outside of wrestling in some other world that would cause someone to want to cause him harm as a physical person.
Yeah, but we
And
all
his
say,
family.
I
But
mean,
I
we
don't-
all say,
I don't know
like,
what people are doing.
like even with Mark, he goes, you got to separate the person from wrestling. For God's sake, I was a heel. I used to go out there and cuss everything. Then I would go to Boy Scout where I was a camp leader. All right, a scout leader. The kids will look up to me. It's a work.
Yes.
Outside of wrestling, I mean, like I said, I've never met him personally. I was in the locker room when he walked past. It was pretty cool.
Mhm.
And you do the heads up like this, and he did the heads up. Because I always thought he was a little bit taller than that until he walked past. I was like,
yeah.
he is.
He's only 5'10". Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, he was about 5'8", dude. I'm 5'10".
I'm 5'8". He was taller than me.
But you're going, okay, I'm in the locker room with these guys. It's pretty cool. But I wish somehow that we could find out what really happened. Because if he didn't, do something, I would really love. He deserves the credit, all the credit that he did in wrestling. The dude was one of those dudes, no matter what, 110% every night. He made shit shine in the ring because you could tell when he was carrying the match.
Yeah.
But like you said, all you're known is for this one thing, and Mark has it right. It's screwed.
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And it is.
I'd like to get Tommy's.
Yeah, that's
I'd like
I
to
would
get
ask for
Tommy's
Tommy's opinion on it. Yeah. I mean, we're talking. I want to hear Tommy. I'm sorry,
Right.
Tommy.
Tommy's very unassuming, but
Yeah,
Tommy,
I'm sorry, Tommy.
Tommy could be a Colombian drug lord for all I know. I mean, I don't know
I'm
what he
sorry,
does.
Tommy. I really want to know. Like, you said you had interactions with him. Did you ever feel that he could, like, is this
Not
me?
in the least. I mean, he was just very. He almost had like a gentle spirit about him. Not to sound weird, but he just very calm. Back in the late '80s, when we were doing television, and when Lanny Poffo got hurt, I want to say into '88, early '89, and they needed someone to fill in for 2 weeks, and they asked me, and that opened the door for me. I was doing house shows every night and spending more time around him and the other guys, and then I got more bookings outside of the regular TV tapings from then on, and playing cards with him, just sitting around in the hotel room doing nothing, just killing time, and I would never have guessed that ever. But going back to the theories and deaths, some of the stuff that I read and heard back then is that based on decomposition, she had died first, and then they assumed within 12 to 14 hours or later that he had died. So, but like we all agreed, no one's ever going to really know.
Right.
But the one thing that's the elephant in the room is the alcohol and drug abuse that no one talks about in the wrestling business that I was involved in. That's one of the reasons I left too, is I didn't want to be caught up on that, because I've lost many friends to overdoses over the years because of that. And they all had prescription drugs. His doctor, they raided his office when they figured out all the drugs that were in their system. And Chris's home, that doctor went to prison for 10 years. They busted him. He would give scripts to everybody.
That's
all
every doctor.
Yeah.
Come on, Tommy. That was every doctor in wrestling.
Oh, brother,
I
these
mean,
guys brought a brown grocery bag full of steroids up anytime we were doing the Northeast, and he'd Dr. Cash and Carry. I'm like, who's that dude? He's like, oh man, he's got all kinds of. We're all full of money.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy, I mean, all due respect, you go to a show all banged up, and you be like, anybody got gimmick, and everyone opens a bag, and there's like 50 perks, and they're like, you're passing them out. You got the liquor, you got, what I mean? And it's a shame, but your body takes up such a beat, and you feel that you have to do that. You have to look good. You have to. But,
perform every night.
One thing I did, I always had like a real job, because like I needed insurance for my wife and family. So every Monday through Friday I'd work. I was a weekend guy, that type of thing. And I would see, like, I caught myself one time. My wife, I woke up one morning, I had a thing of perks right next to my bed. I woke up, took 2 perk 10s, threw them on my mouth. My wife just looked at me, didn't say anything. Then she goes, "What did you need that for? You in pain?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "So why'd you take them?" I said, "Huh?" And I didn't realize it. And then right then and there, like you said, it's time. That's it.
Yeah.
It's telling me something. That it was a problem. It was a huge problem, and you don't realize it. And like I said, these guys, you get paid by the show. You got to perform. All the pressure.
Yeah.
That's something that should be looked at also with everyone in the business, because it's damn near impossible to do that year after year. I don't know how guys do it that long. I really don't.
I only did
really
it for
don't.
8 years, and I'm turning 57 in a couple of weeks, and I've got degenerative arthritis from my neck to my ankles. I live with chronic pain, and I take Tylenol because I don't want to take anything else. But you try to numb it as best you can. But
You take the Tylenol arthritis, because that's what I take. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's also caused other problems with my GI tract because I've taken so much over the years. It's caused other problems. Yeah.
But, well, you know what, Tommy? Not to cut you off. Try the CBD oil. My doctor even said it, and if you look at it, it helps. It really does.
Yeah, I've heard that, but there's so many out there. I don't really know a brand that I can trust. Can you recommend one?
I'll send it to. I'll get it and I'll send it to you.
Okay,
I'll send it. I'm telling you, it. See, I had to watch it because I have a CDL, so this one doesn't have it in it. Not to get off subject, guys, but it really helps, dude. It helps a lot. It really helps. Yeah.
I had a question. Not really off subject, honestly, because this is all contributing factors to this kind of stuff happening. Yeah.
I had a question because both Charles and Tommy mentioned it. That if other wrestlers were in that position and they were making money, that maybe they wouldn't have been erased from WWE. And one question I had, and I wanted to get Tommy's take on it. The NFL, I mentioned O.J. Simpson. Also, Junior Seau committed suicide due to CTE with the autopsy they found out, and he left a note. So the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, they are not publicly owned companies. WWE is. So when this happened, Vince McMahon had to do something to kind of like temper stockholders and kind of like save his face.
Yeah.
Whether it was the right thing or wrong thing. So I guess my question that I wanted to pose to Tommy and of course you guys, what would you have done differently, if anything? Would you have completely erased Benoit? What would you have done differently? Because I feel like WWE had to do that. Is that not shared?
Can I answer this first if you don't want, if you guys don't mind? I think going back to a business standpoint, I think doing exactly what was done. Okay, erasing him from wrestling history, almost gimmicking a promo when he found out what the scenario was. You remember the second night?
Yeah, he said he'll never be mentioned on programming again.
Right, and stuff like that. I think that was a little bit more gimmicky than anything else. It was a little dramatic in a sense.
See, I thought that was the message to the stockholders. I was like,
you're right. But I think that's where. And I hate to be disrespectful, but that's where a lot of marks get their negativity towards the subject. And I think because whatever Vince says is gold. And if Vince says he's an evil, I'm going to call bullshit. And I'm really going to call bullshit because, in all honesty, I get out of wrestling groups because these fans don't realize the work over real life. And I think, honestly, the pictorial of this, of dramatizing, and I hate to say that,
dude, you're gonna make me.
Mark, relax. Mark, relax.
I honestly,
he's turning mad.
He did. He did.
But it's one of those things where I think people are like they're taking that for Bible, and they're not looking at the medical side of it. They're not, and the medical side of it does not excuse what happened. Understand that. But as you can hear from Tommy, as you can hear from other wrestlers that worked with him, nobody said he was a firecracker. He was someone that I was waiting for the day he killed it.
Dan. I mean, what you're saying, all right, they did you had Kona Crush went to jail for drug dealing. We all know.
Yeah.
Jimmy Snuka was still in the beginning, and I did shows with Jimmy. Jimmy was the most.
He was a nice guy. I met him.
I mean, talking to him, he was It was me I'm 51 years old, right? It was like talking to my grandfather sometimes when he sat there. I did a show, we walked in, and he was like, "No, I'm teaming with them." And I said, "What?" He goes, "No, I like them, and he got us paid more money, which was the greatest thing ever to
Yeah,
me, you know.
yeah.
But talking to him, then they say, you know, he possibly murdered this girl. And to me, I couldn't see it. Like, from talking to him, people change. But like I said, if you look at Benoit, if you look at him over the years, look at his face, he went from a person that looks like had like a smile to him to someone that just looked like a ghostly blank stare all the time.
I don't want to just
And
to
I'm
say
not,
on
wait a minute,
for a second.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying
yeah,
that, but if you look
yeah.
at it, that's just me. Like I said, Tommy knew him, you know, but if you look at it, there was definitely something wrong.
With the Snuka situation.
I don't want to bring that up, but
I
I'm
know,
just saying,
but I'm saying,
just
like,
saying, people, there's a possibility for anything.
but there's two different things happening there. Like with the Snuka situation, it was still despicable. Something he was an abusive person, but he did not go in with the intent of killing somebody.
But Vince
That
didn't
was
come, wait a minute.
that was a manslaughter situation.
Hold on. Let's go back to what we were talking about then.
And I'm not excusing.
You're talking about Vince. He's still on the early things, him jumping off the cage, shit like that. Snuka was a big draw.
He was a big draw.
He was whatever. Like I said, you got
And
Hogan.
Benoit was in his decline when this happened.
Yeah, he was on the decline. But to me, like to a fan, well, look, I'm not saying I was a mark, but I used to watch his videos to try to steal moves. You know, like what can I do more exciting? You know, after you get so old, like remember I used to do the flying headbutt because of him because it was easy. It was easy, you know.
It was easy. Yeah.
But you watch these guys who 100, like I said, 110%.
Yeah.
You can't separate, you know, him from the business, but in the way you need to. Like he should not have been erased. I mean, I'd have been like, maybe
then what would you have done? What would you have done?
Hold on, Mark. Let me finish.
Get me mad.
I wouldn't have erased him. I wouldn't have mentioned him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't stop mentioning him.
Stop mentioning him, and he doesn't have to go. And he doesn't have to go in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he doesn't. But he shouldn't have been erased.
No.
I like you talk about Rock and Rebel. I thought he was this despicable person altogether. People still think he's this hero. I knew him on a personal level.
Yeah, I did too.
So there's other things there that contribute to me, right? But at no point did you ever heard anything about Chris Benoit doing anything to anyone.
But you said there, though, you said, I knew him on a personal level. People think of him a different way. And once again, that is wrestling. That's what wrestling displays to you versus what really is.
It's life, real life.
Right. And what Vince McMahon did was, like you said, for the stockholders, I need to take a stand because I'm not going to glorify this guy. And then stockholders will start pulling out and advertisers will start pulling out. I'm going to make a stand. And he dramatized his fucking promo.
Dude, they're not going to pull out because it's too much money, stockholders, and, you know, that shit would have passed.
But I believe, honestly, the wrestling, the WWE wrestling fans who sit there and say, he's a murderer, he's this, they don't even give any kind of thought pattern to the fact that maybe Nancy was going to murder him and he caught her first. I mean, we don't know what the fuck happened. You understand what I'm saying? But like in the sense of this, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but in the sense of it, you know, it's real life versus what they display to you. Some people just don't understand the side of the business of maybe he had some mental retardation based on everything that happened.
But in that case, what you're saying, hold on, I don't want to cut you off, Mark. You guys can go ahead with this, but what about all the guys that, you know, I know guys that OD'd. We all know they were heavy drug users.
Mm-hmm.
Does he dismiss all those guys too? Completely? Never mention them again? No. Like I said, I can understand not mentioning Chris because of how it happened and what happened, what they think happened. Like I said,
no matter what happened, we
don't know what happened.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish we could ever, you know, somehow one day figure it out, you know, just to kind of like close the door on it. I can understand not mentioning them, but just erase them out of all like archives. I thought that was bullshit.
Yeah.
You know,
one thing, if I can jump in real quick, fellas,
absolutely.
Is that weekend, Chavo Guerrera and a couple other guys were getting texting back and forth with Benoit. He had missed his flight that final day to be there.
That's right.
He was supposed to be the night before the ECW championship with CM Punk. Mm-hmm. He missed that show. The boys hear everything about what's going on, and he's supposed to be them in Corpus Christi. And they went to John Laurinaitis and said, look, we've getting all these texts back and forth. He was saying, you know, Nancy and Daniel are sick. They're in the hospital. I'm getting sick. I'm not sure I can make the show or whatever. So they, about 4 in the afternoon that day. That day was, but they called for a welfare check, and that's when the police found him.
Right.
And so what Vince did was they came up with the idea to do this tribute to Benoit without having the facts. All they knew was 3 people found in his home, and when they found out the next day, I heard Vince was furious, embarrassed that he did that. They should have waited. And to all the stockholders, the fans, and all that, public perception is that Chris Benoit is a monster, no matter what happened. So Vince automatically just said, you know what, I was embarrassed. I did that. I don't want nothing to do with him and moving forward, which is a shame. But Vince McMahon is a great businessman, but he's also very arrogant, very prideful.
Yeah.
So my perception is I understand he did a horrible thing. It's unforgivable to me, no matter what happened. But I still admire his body of work and appreciate his skills in the ring. But but like you guys say, you can't excuse what happened to his family.
Right.
No,
Right. Exactly.
not at all.
I
Like
mean,
I said,
yeah.
I'm not making excuses at all. But him,
I mean,
ECW, all the way up until whenever, that should have never been erased because
we
guys
all
will
know-
never know how good he was.
Right. Right.
He was one of the top 5 in the business.
We all know the Hall of Fame is a bullshit thing anyway. It's a work. We all know that. It's
So
all
is
based. Yeah, I know, right? It's all. I mean, it's all based on what they want to do. There's so many people that got entered in the Hall of Fame, and it had no business being in there. That type.
Yeah, they got the refrigerator Perry in there. Come on, dude. Come
Of,
on.
yeah. You know,
Come on, dude.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, he did more than some people in there. But in the scenario of, like you said, if you're not going to put him in the Hall of Fame and glorify Chris Benoit, and that's a big thing that you said, Tommy, that Vince was embarrassed, and Vince lashed out basically in a sense, like a kid, and said, "Well, I'm going to take my ball and go home," almost in the scenario, and now I'm going to retract everything I said the night before, and now fuck you, Chris Benoit. You're an evil person.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And that's what happened. And like I said, and Mark, do not discuss this because there are fans out there who take.
There are, but I'm not one of them.
I'm not saying you,
But
you
I
gotta
have
say them.
but because I have the same opinion as them, that you're going to group me in that.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
wait a minute, Mark. You know I never, but I'm just saying.
Am I right, Charles? Am I
Some
right?
people, look, there's people that actually believe this shit, man. And they believe wrestling.
Charles,
You
am I
know,
right? Am I right?
yeah,
in saying what
look.
I'm saying?
When
I'm
I got
gonna-
escorted out of a show in West Virginia, I was like, this shit can't be happening. We were laughing. I'm like, are they believing this shit? Like, like I've never had anything like that happen, you know. And they were chanting the N-word. I'm like, okay, it's time to go home, dude. So it was like I've never seen anything like that at the time. So there are people that believe it. You know,
I just want to point out.
They can't separate.
I want to point out that in 5 minutes, Tommy just most eloquently put his opinion better than Dan has in 15 years. I
Mark,
just want to say that, okay?
Mark, I love you. Mark, I love you to death, and you know that. But shut the fuck up.
Because when I heard Tommy just give his opinion there, he put it in a very classy way.
Yes, very
There's nothing.
classy.
There's nothing about you, classy Dan. You're like, oh, all these Vince McMahon sheep. I'm not a Vince McMahon sheep, but like he had to do what was best for his business. Whether I don't like you. You put me on the side of.
But business.
I don't want to
has nothing do with what
defend.
happened.
You're making me defend Vince McMahon, and that just makes me feel dirty. But the fact is, he has a multi-billion-dollar company.
He does.
And if he did what he felt was best for his company, who are we to
But
argue that?
I understand.
Mark, look, and you know me and you never agree on a lot of stuff, but you're absolutely right. I get it. Tommy, just so you know, when I agree with Mark, it turns my stomach.
It's rare.
It's very rare.
The sky's turning red.
It's like this. I feel like shaking, like, you know, I need a drink when this happens.
Birds stop flying.
I do. Mark, I get it. I do get it. You know, but like
But
I said,
that's not the point we were defending, though.
Yeah.
We weren't defending. We weren't going against Vince McMahon doing what he did for the reasons he did it. What we were saying, though, is the result of what Vince McMahon did causes all the negative reaction from that group of fans who were on our social media saying, he's a murderer, he's a monster, blah, blah, blah. Those are the fans who were watching WWF and WWE religiously
And
believe
nothing
everything
else.
that Vince McMahon.
And
Yeah,
and you're gonna tell me that
Hold on.
anybody watching ABC News, CNN, Fox,
You're right.
this was a major story that was
Very
covered
major
on
story.
every network. So
and those
you're
people
gonna
were
take
watching
away.
Raw before they were watching ABC News.
I have to admit, Mark, they even talked about this shit on The View. So you know it was
Yeah.
messed up.
It was
Yes.
big,
It was
and
huge.
so
was
what
huge.
what Dan's saying is that it took Vince McMahon to shut it down for fans to have outrage. No, I had outrage the minute I found this was a murder suicide. That changes everything.
I think maybe Tommy can agree. Vince he just wanted it to go away. He wanted it
He
all
really
to go away.
Right.
did. No, and he did.
Yeah, he
really
wanted
did.
it to go away. That's just the business. Anything negative, they always say there's nothing like this in wrestling. It doesn't matter with publicity, but that one was the one you just had to make go away, and
Yeah.
that's what he did. He
And I got
absolutely
this for
made it
let me
go
ask you
away.
this now. Let me ask you
Yeah.
this. Take the murder out of it. Take your opinions out of it. Take everything out of it.
Okay.
Going back to what Charles said about erasing him from wrestling history. Now, he's really only erased from wrestling history according to the WWE.
Right.
Okay? So, with that
But he owns all the tapes of WCW.
I know he owns
so
everything anyway. I know.
what the hell?
It's
Yeah.
like yeah, he pretty much took
Yeah.
everything out anyway. But in that sense, okay, does that make you, as a wrestling fan, not a sports entertainment fan, not a WWE fan, but as a wrestling fan, look slightly less on the WWE as that wrestling product, because now the sports entertainment or the drama behind it got away from pro wrestling? Because like Charles said, he gave too much to this business, Chris Benoit, to be erased. He contributed way too much as a worker, top 5 workers of all time. You said you think,
I believe. I
yeah,
believe.
and I honestly do too.
Yeah.
And to have him erased, it's like, well, then you don't really give a shit about wrestling, WWE.
Well,
give a shit about your appearance.
Well, you know how I feel about wrestling now to when we were in the ring. A lot of these guys never paid dues. They weren't. It drives me nuts, but whatever. But a person like a Benoit that came from the bottom,
yes,
worked his way to the top.
Mhm.
He worked his way. He busted his ass to get to the top. And ultimately, if you think about, like we said, if it was concussions and everything, gave his life
now
for the business.
Yeah,
you don't want to
he
say like he gave his life, but it cost him his life. How's it? I'll say
it did though.
if it's CTE and they say this and that and he was uncontrollable, his mind wasn't right, he gave his life to this business.
And if anything, that
He
makes
should be
wrestling.
erased.
That makes wrestling the monster in a sense,
Look,
because it took Nancy, and it took him, and it took several other people.
if you watch the Dark Side of the Ring, like I know a lot of people do, what we did was not like everyone thinks is this glorified thing. Wrestling's pretty effed up in a way. We all know the locker rooms, the shit that goes on, the politics. Tommy can attest to this better than me. The politics of it all, it's really screwy. It's messed up. It sucks. You got some guys out there that can work 1,000 times better than someone else, but they don't know this person or they don't kiss this person's ass. Whatever. That's just how the business is. But this guy worked his way from the bottom, paid his dues, like I said, pretty much ultimately gave his life, for the business. He should not be erased. I can understand what they're saying to a point. Not mentioning him on TV and stuff like that, I get it, okay, because of what happened. But he should not have been erased.
Tommy, what do you think?
I don't know if the businesses work from top to bottom, inside out, east to west. How do you erase somebody from the business? On the network, they rerun all these shows. There's no way you're going to take a match out of each show that he's been in. I understand they probably never mention him again, but it's almost a work to me saying, "Oh, you're erased," because you never hear about anybody that's ever left the business. Once they're gone, they're not.
You're right.
No one
You're
remembers
right.
them. So it's just like they just don't talk about them. So I don't think it's punitive with Benoit. They're just like the rest of the guys. If you're not making me money, I'm not going to mention you.
Right.
But they probably won't put him in the Work Hall of Fame. And
Right.
does it really matter? Does it give you?
Yeah, it's bullshit anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Mark,
And they haven't erased him any of his matches from, like, you can watch a Nitro with him on it. You can watch him at WrestleMania 20. They have not erased that from the network. They just, when you look at the video description for WrestleMania 20, it does not mention his name. It just says the world title defended in a triple threat match. The match is still there.
Okay.
You still have the
Okay.
celebration, but his name is not mentioned. So I think that's more in line with what I probably. Yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. You wouldn't erase him.
Mark,
but
you would know this, Mark. Did they, after he went from number one position in the Royal Rumble and won it, did they do that again with anybody else?
since him, that's a good question. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. They may have done it.
You are not doing your job, Mark. That's your job.
I know. I was
Listen,
expecting him to have
they
that
all-
answer.
they all-
Mad Mark Lins, you should know these things, man.
I
You know.
should.
All
You're
right.
talking 03, so maybe somebody did 05 to 10. Who knows? But I don't, not off the top of my head.
Because I think that's a feat in itself that has not been done before him, and I don't think it's been done after him. But I don't watch WWE past a certain years, and I know up until the point I stopped, nobody had done it.
Actually, what's coming to mind now is Roman Reigns may have done it because
Yeah.
there was one Royal Rumble that he had to defend the championship in the Royal Rumble, where if anybody, and I think, no, you know what? Triple H won that match. Never mind. So,
Did
yeah,
Rick-
No.
Wait a
No,
minute.
okay.
Didn't Ric Flair come in 1 or 2 one time and win it?
number three.
Oh, okay.
Number
okay.
And that
three.
was before Benoit. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that was well
All right,
before
all
Benoit.
right, okay.
So Benoit, that in itself is a WWE milestone that has not been repeated, and they may not do it again.
well,
or
you talk
who knows?
about Vince McMahon being petty. Brock Lesnar was the youngest world champion ever. Then when Brock Lesnar burned Vince made Randy Orton the youngest champion. So you're right. Maybe Vince would have made somebody go from number one to win it all. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know. And once again, it's whether it comes up, I guess, and has to be rectified. You know what I mean? Vince McMahon's a lot like a drug lord.
Well, you remember
Right,
when
like-
they screwed Bret Hart out of that finish? He thought he was going to be over.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Totally. And
There's
you know
another
what?
thing.
And I'm gonna tell you one thing. What Bret Hart did when he punched him in his face, that's the greatest thing ever. But it just shows you he bought him back because he makes some money. It's all about money. Because I don't know about you. If somebody punches me in the
You
face,
better believe it. Make it rain.
I'm done with it, right? You understand? But he punched him in the damn face. He spit in his face. Punched him in the
Yeah, Charles,
Well-
that was a hell of a right hand.
Yeah, but it's all about the money. He knew he had to bring him back. It's all about the money, So it's a shame
Exactly.
that's how the business is, but that's how it is. It's all
I mean,
about
in
the mighty
closing,
dollar.
And the
In
show's
closing.
going, we're getting close to our closing
Oh.
time here. I mean,
We all did a lot of talking. I wanted to hear Tommy in his brief comments. He said more shit and it made
All
more
three of
sense
us.
Right.
than all three of us, especially you, Dan. So I agree with Mark. But go ahead.
let's end it now. No, just kidding. But I mean, in closing, this was a tragic thing, and it really was tragic for all parties, and including their extended families, etc.
Yes.
I agree with Charles. I do not think that he should have been erased. I agree with don't put him in the Hall of Fame and don't talk about him again if you don't want to. But I don't think he should be erased in a sense. I feel a little bit better. Mark said he's there.
They just don't mention him.
They just don't mention him like in promos for it or something like that. And I guess that's okay. I'm all right with that because he contributed way too much. Mark, what are your thoughts? At the beginning of the show, you said, maybe I'll think differently about something. Do you think differently about anything?
I thought Tommy did a great job of explaining his stance. I think you guys have similar opinions. And again, I'm not trying to be funny, but Dan, you have not once said something that made me go, oh, you know what? I see it that way.
Mark
But
is
Tommy,
programmed
thank
not to
you,
go
Tommy.
yeah.
Because Tommy said it so eloquently that I respect that now. Yeah, I came into the show not
Motherfucker.
being able to even acknowledge the other side. I'm very, but
He did
I
it
at
just
least
because of
am
me. You realize that?
open-minded.
You guys talked about O.J. Simpson. You remember Chris Rock made that joke about O.J. Simpson?
Oh,
He
yeah,
said-
yeah. I ain't saying he did
My
it,
wife
but I
didn't even
understand.
actually
Yeah.
kill her, but I understand.
I understand.
That's why I started laughing when Stevie Ray was like, yo, I understand your wife wants you want to punch your wife in the face. I get it.
Yeah, remember when he said it, I was like, wow. Yeah.
You know? But, I mean, guys, have your opinions, obviously.
All right. In closing for me,
Yeah,
closing for me, we all know how much of a shame it was.
Yes. Yes.
If everything they say about the CT, like the brain damage, things like that, there should be more studies done. And me being in the business, they should look for stuff like this, because if this is true, it's going to happen again. It's going to
Yes,
happen again.
it is.
There should be more studies. There should be what's the word I'm looking here? More protocol, like Tommy said.
Well,
A
they
lot-
stopped
a lot.
matches. They've stopped matches
They-
recently
Yeah, they've
because
stopped.
they see. Yeah, so
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, more protocol after that. You know what I mean? The watch. More like, if that happened to you during the match, the next 6 months, you have to go to the doctor once every 3 weeks to get double. You know what I mean? Shit
Right.
like that.
Right.
So we don't want this to happen again. It's a shame that what happened, that we'll never know the whole story.
Yes.
Like I said, if there's a heaven or hell, if the guy's not guilty, you know,
Yeah.
I hope he's like, whatever.
At
If he's
peace.
guilty, you know, and
No.
because of
Yeah.
wait a minute, I got to phrase it right. If he's guilty and it wasn't like an issue like anyone else, that's on you, you know.
Right.
But there was something that I wish we could have did, or someone would have noticed before, that could have helped them. Guys need to look out in the business for shit like this. If I'm looking at you and I know every time I see you looking real glassy-eyed, I'm going to go say something to somebody. Instead of worrying about the money, you need to check on this dude. He shouldn't be in the ring. He shouldn't be doing this. You need to check. You know,
Well, that's what,
something's not right.
Chavo Guerrera and Chris
Yes.
Jericho, they went to John Laurinaitis because that was when it was too late, but they said, man, this is not adding
That's
up.
not him. Yeah. They knew
Yeah.
that was not him. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, Mark, let me ask you this question in closing. Did we take one side over another?
no, I think
Yes or
we
no?
had a pretty good conversation here. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Did we glorify Chris Benoit in any way, shape, or form?
No.
I don't think
No.
we did.
Right.
I
No,
don't think
yeah,
we
it's
did.
a no. No, we didn't.
We
Okay.
didn't glorify anyone. No.
Mark, your assignment for today is to go on social media and promote this show in the light that it was in, not in the light of Republicans versus Democrats. Okay. This is
Okay.
all right. That's your assignment for today.
In
Tommy,
closing, that's what I want to hear, Tommy's. In closing, Tommy. What do you feel?
Tommy, close this out, please.
Well,
Yeah.
first, can we get a big virtual hug? Everybody get back together on the same page.
Yes.
Love-
Big hug, big
Yes.
hug, big hug.
No, I love the fact that's what's beautiful about our country and our world is differing opinions and how we see things, and that our country needs more dialogue about different subjects all across the board. But I don't think we glorified him in any way. Recognizing a man's talents
Mhm.
can be separated from his actions. It doesn't glorify or justify. Just
Right.
understanding his unique skill sets, and it's tragic.
Yeah.
To Charles' point, is we need to be more in tune with people around us in our lives and understanding. When people ask if I want my son to go into business, I always tell them no, because there is no protocols for
Right.
CTE, brain damage, concussions. There's no drug counseling. There's no alcohol counseling. He uses you up and spits you out, and you're done. And that's what happens to these people's lives. They don't realize.
Right.
I've literally know 20 people that have died. I almost saw Steve Williams die on the way to Japan. He overdosed on the flight, and we brought him through customs. He was vomiting. He was on a stretcher. That freaked me out, and it was
Right.
very close to when I was deciding to get out of the business. So there's a lot there, but I think understanding people and communicating with them and recognizing if there's a problem, ask good questions. So
Ask the questions.
You
Yep.
know what? And we didn't bring this up, but very super quick so we can end the show. David Benoit, does he have a chance in hell or no?
he doesn't show any dollar signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, you figure, you know, he's gonna have to change the last name, okay? But
Mhm.
if he's talented and he can work, I don't think that should be held against him. Because you got a lot of kids that came in that totally sucked, and they're still there because of who their dad.
Well, you know what?
or
Like
their
I see
mom.
Brian
But-
Pillman Jr., who is nowhere near the athlete that his father was.
Father was.
And he's not bad, but he looks just like his dad. You know what I mean?
But no, I'm just saying. I mean, don't use him
Yeah.
as like. Look, if the kid can work, all right, he should get a shot. That's just the bottom line.
Put a
If
mask
he's-
on him.
No, don't put a mask. He does look a lot like his father.
He's identical, I think.
But
yeah.
but I mean, you can dye his hair blonde. Just don't use the name, whatever, and give the kid a shot. If that's his dream, it should not. You shouldn't be paying for the sins of the father.
Yeah,
in that case,
True.
Shane McMahon would never be in wrestling because the shit his old man did. I mean, I'm being honest. Think about what I'm saying here, all right?
Well, ain't nobody else calling Shane.
Yeah, but you understand what I mean?
Vince ain't even calling Shane.
But you understand what I mean. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be held accountable with something that someone else did. You know,
That's true.
yeah.
That's
He should
true.
be. He should. If he's good, if he can work, get a kid a shot. That's it. You know.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Guys, thank you guys for coming on. I love that we had this show today. And once again, I think it was a long time coming. For Mad Mark Lindsay, for Charles Gemini Gregory, and for the awesome Tommy Angel.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you very much, Tommy. My name is Danny J. Until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Goodbye, everybody.
The proceeding was produced by DJB Productions. Go to www.thatwrestlingshow.com.